Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So today I want to talk about the biggest issue with Path of Exile. Not so much what it is, because pretty much everyone's experienced it at least once in a while, but things that you can do to prevent it from happening a lot of the time. So the thing is that I'm talking about is desync. Desync is when you try to move your character and it's not really responding, or you're getting hit and there's no monsters on your screen. I can't really show you guys an example right now, but I'm sure you guys have a pretty good idea about what's going on. So largely desync is caused by a few things. It can be caused by monsters that move very quickly, such as Roas who charge, or when the character moves very quickly. But in my experience, for most characters, at least most of the ones that people tend to make, the desync is caused by the monsters. If you use like whirling blades like non-stop, then yeah, you'll desync a lot. But if maybe leap slam, you'll desync a lot more than normal. But in general, it's the mobs that will desync. And what happens is, like, if you have a mob and you've played like Diablo 3 or Diablo 2 or whatever, and you're playing melee, you're used to just like left clicking the mob and just attacking it. So I wanna left click this mob and just smash, But that's not really the correct way of doing things. The reason is, if I left click on this mob, while the zombie will pretty much never desync, but if I left click on a mob in general, just to attack it, and the mob desyncs to a different position, when the mob resyncs with the server, you will go to where the mob would have been if you left clicked it. So what does that mean? So it means if I want to kill this zombie over here and I left click on that one, my character will walk over and kill that zombie. But if this zombie was, actually over there, when the server resyncs, my character will move from this position to that position where that zombie was, instantaneously. So as a result, during this grace period where on your screen you won't see this, you think you'll be safe in the lower right hand corner of the screen with your zombie. Well, the upper left might be really dangerous, but you think you're safe. But because you left clicked on the zombie in the lower right, your character might actually be in the top left getting hit by mobs that you don't think you're actually getting hit by. So that's really the most common one, and that's the one that plagues most melee characters. The problem with that is it actually plagues the characters that use the shittiest of abilities, which are like single target melee abilities. This also applies to ranged. So if you use, for instance, Fireball, and you have Fireball, let's say, on your right click, and you're just right clicking the mob, right clicking the mob. If there's like a barrier, maybe like this, well, that doesn't work. But if there's a barrier here and you right click the mob, and the mob was actually in a different spot, and then it moved behind the barrier, your character might end up moving towards where the mob actually was. So that's really the mindset behind it. And what you can do to fix this is using your standstill key. So it's kind of a pain in the ass with melee because people are just not used to it. But I tend to do this a lot, and I think it really contributes to the desync problem. So if you want to attack even with left click, you really should be doing it with the standstill button. The problem is with melee, it's sometimes really hard to hit these single target attacks, so sometimes you kind of have to left click the mobs, but when you can use your standstill, you should always be using your standstill. And when it comes to abilities like leap slam, anything like that, anything that is area of effect based, always use your standstill key. I did this in Diablo 3, I've been doing Diablo 2. It's very, second nature to me, and it's not as bad in general. The other kind of desync is essentially caused by the terrain, and I think I can give you guys an example here. So sometimes there's some very narrow passageways within terrain. For instance, in Submerged Passage, let me see if I can find something. So these tunnels can get really narrow. Right here they're still pretty wide, but sometimes they can get flooded with monsters in narrow passageways. So like this tunnel, for instance, if there's a slightly big mob, like a medium-sized mob, or maybe several of them, and I'm trying to run through, while I might be able to run through on my screen, when the server resyncs with my client after a few seconds, it may in fact have calculated that I did not pass through the mobs through this small tunnel. And as a result, it might port me back there, but in the time difference between the two events occurring, I might be getting hit by mobs that are not on my screen. So in here, for instance, you know, I'm just like trying to inch through. There, I made it through. And wasn't able to cause any desync there, but that's a very, you know, high chance in doing an action like that. So when you're dealing with you know, narrow passages or something that might restrict mob movement like a door, it's very good to be very attentive of what's going on with your character. So, you know, either to try to prevent desync from happening at all, or if you can't, just making sure that you're not taking damage right after the fact of you going through the door or through the narrow tunnel. Now, this is all like single player shit. With multiplayer, what can happen is there's more variables. There's the other variable of the other player, and when you both go through the same tunnel, it might, you know, desync like crazy if there's certain mobs there. So when you're playing with other players and you are, you know, as a group moving through narrow tunnels like these, you really want to stop and kill the mobs, so a few of the players don't get like they're locked in their position where they're actually not on their screen. So that's really, you know, the primary causes of desync. There's obviously many others, but in general, if you keep these things in mind, if you keep in mind that the terrain can really affect it, and if you use your standstill key, which is typically shift, as much as possible, and, you know, staying in open areas in general, all that stuff can really contribute to a pretty good gaming experience. I think, you know, desync is a pretty big problem with Path of Exile. You know, obviously the devs have recognized it as such, and, you know, I'm pretty confident that things will get better, but it's very difficult to change something like this. It's not like a broken game mechanic of like items or drops or something like that. It requires a lot of work to try to get to the heart of the issue and fix. So, you know, this problem may be staying with Path of Exile for a while. So if you're playing, you really have to know what's going on to, you know, not be the victim of a desync death. So, that's about it, guys. Hope you guys enjoy Path of Exile without the desync, like I have been for the most part. And keep it rocking. See you guys tomorrow.